Chapter 17. Solomon's Treasure Chamber. While we were engaged in recovering from our fright and in examining the grisly wonders of the place of death, Gagul had been differently occupied, somehow or other, for she was marvelously active when she chose. She had scrambled onto the great table and made her way to where our departed friend Twala was placed, under the drip, to see, suggested good, how he was pickling, or for some dark purpose of her own. Then, after bending down to kiss his icy lips as though in affectionate greeting, she hobbled back, stopping now and again to address the remark, the tenor of which I could not catch, to one or other of the shrouded forms, just as you or I might welcome an old acquaintance. Having gone through this mysterious and horrible ceremony, she squatted herself down on the table immediately under the white death and began, so far as I could make out, to offer up prayers. The spectacle of this wicked creature pouring out supplications, evil ones, no doubt, to the arch-enemy of mankind, was so uncanny that it caused us to hasten our inspection. "Now, Gagul," said I in a low voice, somehow one did not dare to speak above a whisper in that place, "lead us to the chamber." The old witch promptly scrambled down from the table. "My lords are not afraid?" she said, leering up into my face. "Lead on." "Good, my lords." And she hobbled round to the back of the great death. "Here is the chamber. Let my lords light the lamp and enter." And she placed the gourd full of oil upon the floor and leaned herself against the side of the cave. I took out a match, of which we had still a few in a box, and lit a rush wick, and then looked for the doorway, but there was nothing before us except the solid rock. Gagul grinned. "The way is there, my lords. Ha, ha, ha!" "Do not jest with us," I said sternly. "I jest not, my lords. See," and she pointed at the rock. As she did so, on holding up the lamp, we perceived that a mass of stone was rising slowly from the floor and vanishing into the rock above, where doubtless there is a cavity prepared to receive it. The mass was of the width of a good-sized door, about 10 feet high and not less than 5 feet thick. It must have weighed at least 20 or 30 tons, and was clearly moved upon some simple balance principle of counterweights, probably the same as that by which the opening and shutting of an ordinary modern window is arranged. How the principle was set in motion, of course none of us saw. Gagul was careful to avoid this, but I have little doubt that there was some very simple lever, which was moved ever so little by pressure at a secret spot, thereby throwing additional weight on to the hidden counterbalances and causing the monolith to be lifted from the ground. Very slowly and gently the great stone raised itself, till at last it had vanished altogether, and a dark hole presented itself to us in the place which the door had filled. Our excitement was so intense as we saw the way to Solomon's treasure chamber thrown open at last that I, for one, began to tremble and shake. Would it prove a hoax after all, I wondered, or was old da Silvestra right? Were there vast hoards of wealth hidden in that dark place, hoards which would make us the richest men in the whole world? We should know in a minute or two. "Enter, white men from the stars," said Gagul, advancing into the doorway, "but first hear your servant, Gagul the Old. The bright stones that ye will see were dug out of the pit over which the silent ones are set, and stored here, I know not by whom, for that was done longer ago than even I remember. But once has this place been entered since the time that those who hid the stones departed in haste, leaving them behind. The report of the treasure went down indeed among the people who lived in the country from age to age, but none knew where the chamber was, nor the secret of the door. But it happened that a white man reached this country from over the mountains. Perchance he too came from the stars, and was well received by the king of that day. He it is who sits yonder," and she pointed to the 5th king at the table of the dead. "And it came to pass that he and a woman of the country who was with him journeyed to this place, and that by chance the woman learnt the secret of the door. 1,000 years might ye search, but ye should never find that secret." Then the white man entered with the woman, and found the stones, and filled with stones the skin of a small goat, which the woman had with her to hold food. And as he was going from the chamber, he took up one more stone, a large one, and held it in his hand. Here she paused. "Well," I asked, breathless with interest as we all were, "what happened to da Silvestra?" The old hag started at the mention of the name. "How knowest thou the dead man's name?" she asked sharply, and then, without waiting for an answer, went on. "None can tell what happened. But it came about that the white man was frightened, for he flung down the goatskin with the stones and fled out with only the one stone in his hand, and that the king took, and it is the stone which thou, Macumazahn, didst take from Twala's brow." "Have none entered here since?" I asked, peering again down the dark passage. "None, my lords. Only the secret of the door has been kept, and every king has opened it, though he has not entered. There is a saying that those who enter there will die within a moon, even as the white man died in the cave upon the mountain, where ye found him, Macumazahn, and therefore the kings do not enter. Ha, ha, mine are true words." Our eyes met as she said it, and I turned sick and cold. How did the old hag know all these things? "Enter, my lords. If I speak truth, the goatskin with the stones will lie upon the floor. And if there is truth as to whether it is death to enter here, that ye will learn afterwards. Ha, ha, ha!" And she hobbled through the doorway, bearing the light with her. But I confess that once more I hesitated about following. "Oh, confound it all," said Good. "Here goes. I am not going to be frightened by that old devil," and followed by Foulata, who, however, evidently did not at all like the business, for she was shivering with fear. He plunged into the passage after Gagul, an example which we quickly followed. A few yards down the passage, in the narrow way hewn out of the living rock, Gagul had paused and was waiting for us. "See, my lords," she said, holding the light before her, "those who stored the treasure here fled in haste, and bethought them to guard against any who should find the secret of the door, but had not the time." And she pointed to large square blocks of stone, which, to the height of 2 courses, about 2 feet 3, had been placed across the passage with a view to walling it up. Along the side of the passage were similar blocks ready for use, and, most curious of all, a heap of mortar and a couple of trowels, which tools, so far as we had time to examine them, appeared to be of a similar shape and make to those used by workmen to this day. Here Foulata, who had been in a state of great fear and agitation throughout, said that she felt faint and could go no farther, but would wait there. Accordingly, we set her down on the unfinished wall, placing the basket of provisions by her side, and left her to recover. Following the passage for about 15 paces farther, we came suddenly to an elaborately painted wooden door. It was standing wide open. Whoever was last there had either not found the time to shut it, or had forgotten to do so. Across the threshold of this door lay a skin bag, formed of a goat skin, that appeared to be full of pebbles. He, white men," sniggered Gagul, as the light from the lamp fell upon it. "What did I tell you? That the white man who came here fled in haste, and dropped the woman's bag. Behold it. Look within also, and ye will find a water gourd amongst the stones." Good stooped down and lifted it. It was heavy and jingled. "By Jove, I believe it's full of diamonds," he said in an awed whisper, and, indeed, the idea of a small goatskin full of diamonds is enough to awe anybody. "Go on," said Sir Henry impatiently. "Here, old lady, give me the lamp." And taking it from Gagul's hand, he stepped through the doorway and held it high above his head. We pressed in after him, forgetful for the moment of the bag of diamonds, and found ourselves in King Solomon's treasure chamber. At first, all that the somewhat faint light given by the lamp revealed was a room hewn out of the living rock, and apparently not more than 10 feet square. Next, there came into sight, stored one on the other to the arch of the roof, a splendid collection of elephant tusks. How many of them there were we did not know, for of course we could not see to what depth they went back, but there could not have been less than the ends of 400 or 500 tusks of the first quality visible to our eyes. There, alone, with enough ivory to make a man wealthy for life. Perhaps, I thought, it was from this very store that Solomon drew the raw material for his great throne of ivory, of which there was not the like made in any kingdom. On the opposite side of the chamber were about a score of wooden boxes, something like Martini, Henry ammunition boxes, only rather larger and painted red. "There are the diamonds," cried I. "Bring the light." Sir Henry did so, holding it close to the top box, of which the lid, rendered rotten by time even in that dry place, appeared to have been smashed in, probably by da Silvestre himself. Pushing my hand through the hole in the lid, I drew it out full, not of diamonds, but of gold pieces, of a shape that none of us had seen before, and with what looked like Hebrew characters stamped upon them. "Ah," I said, replacing the coin, "we shan't go back empty-handed, anyhow. There must be a couple of thousand pieces in each box, and there are 18 boxes. I suppose this was the money to pay the workmen and merchants." "Well," put in Good, "I think that is the lot. I don't see any diamonds unless the old Portuguese put them all into his bag." "Let my lords look yonder where it is darkest if they would find the stones," said Gagul, interpreting our looks. "There, my lords, will find a nook, and 3 stone chests in the nook, 2 sealed and 1 open." Before translating this to Sir Henry, who carried the light, I could not resist asking how she knew these things, if no one had entered the place since the white man, generations ago. "Ah, Macumazahn, the watcher by night," was the mocking answer. "Ye who dwell in the stars, do ye not know that some live long, and that some have eyes which can see through rock? Ha! Ha! Look in that corner, Curtis," I said, indicating the spot Gagul had pointed out. "Hello, you fellows," he cried. "Here's a recess. Great heavens! See here." We hurried up to where he was standing in a nook, shaped something like a small bow window. Against the wall of this recess were placed 3 stone chests, each about 2 feet square. 2 were fitted with stone lids. The lid of the third rested against the side of the chest, which was open. "See," he repeated hoarsely, holding the lamp over the open chest. We looked, and for a moment could make nothing out on account of a silvery sheen which dazzled us. When our eyes grew used to it, we saw that the chest was 3 parts full of uncut diamonds, most of them of considerable size. Stooping, I picked some up. Yes, there was no doubt of it. There was the unmistakable soapy feel about them. I fairly gasped as I dropped them. "We are the richest men in the whole world," I said. "Monte Cristo was a fool to us." "We shall flood the market with diamonds," said Good. "Got to get them there first," suggested Sir Henry. We stood still with pale faces and stared at each other, the lantern in the middle and the glimmering gems below, as though we were conspirators about to commit a crime, instead of being, as we thought, the most fortunate men on earth. "He, cackled old Gagul behind us, as she flitted about like a vampire bat. "There are the bright stones ye love, white men, as many as ye will. Take them, run them through your fingers, eat of them, drink of them, ha, ha." At that moment there was something so ridiculous to my mind at the idea of eating and drinking diamonds that I began to laugh outrageously, an example which the others followed, without knowing why. There we stood and shrieked with laughter over the gems that were ours, which had been found for us thousands of years ago by the patient delvers in the great hole yonder, and stored for us by Solomon's long-dead overseer, whose name, perchance, was written in the characters stamped on the faded wax that yet adhered to the lids of the chest. Solomon never got them, nor David, or da Silvestre, nor anybody else. We had got them. There before us were millions of pounds worth of diamonds and thousands of pounds worth of gold and ivory only waiting to be taken away. Suddenly the fit passed off, and we stopped laughing. "Open the other chests, white men," croaked Gagul. "There are surely more therein. Take your fill, white lords. Ha, ha! Take your fill." Thus adjured, we set to work to pull up the stone lids on the other two first, not without a feeling of sacrilege, breaking the seals that fastened them. Hurrah! They were full too, full to the brim. At least the second one was. No wretched burglarious da Silvestre had been filling goatskins out of that. As for the third chest, it was only about a fourth full, but the stones were all picked ones, none less than 20 carats, and some of them as large as pigeon eggs. A good many of these bigger ones, however, we could see by holding them up to the light, were a little yellow, off-colored, as they call it at Kimberley. What we did not see, however, was the look of fearful malevolence that old Gagul favored us with as she crept like a snake out of the treasure chamber and down the passage towards the door of solid rock. Hark! Cry upon cry comes ringing up the vaulted path. It is Foulata's voice. "Oh, Bougwan, help, help!" The stone falls. "Leave go, girl." Then, "Help, help, she has stabbed me." By now we are running down the passage, and this is what the light from the lamp shows us. The door of the rock is closing down slowly. It is not 3 feet from the floor. Near it struggle Foulata and Gagul. The red blood of the former runs to her knee, but still the brave girl holds the old witch, who fights like a wild cat. Ah, she is free! Foulata falls, and Gagul throws herself on the ground to twist like a snake through the crack of the closing stone. She is under. Ah, God! Too late! Too late! The stone nips her, and she yells in agony. Down, down it comes, all the 30 tons of it, slowly pressing her old body against the rock below. Shriek upon shriek, such as we have never heard, then a long, sickening crunch, and the door was shut just as, rushing down the passage, we hurled ourselves against it. It was all done in 4 seconds. Then we turned to Foulata. The poor girl was stabbed in the body, and I saw that she could not live long. "Ah, Bougwan, I die!" gasped the beautiful creature. She crept out. Gagul, I did not see her, I was faint, and the door began to fall. Then she came back, and was looking up the path. I saw her come in through the slowly falling door, and caught her and held her, and she stabbed me, and I die, Bougwan. Poor girl, Good cried in his distress, and then, as he could do nothing else, he fell to kissing her. "Bougwan," she said after a pause, "is Macumazahn there? It grows so dark I cannot see." "Here I am, Foulata. Macumazahn, be my tongue for a moment, I pray thee, for Bougwan cannot understand me, and before I go into the darkness I would speak to him a word." "Say on, Foulata, I will render it. Say to my lord Bougwan that I love him, and that I am glad to die because I know that he cannot cumber his life with such as I am, for the sun may not mate with the darkness, nor the white with the black. Say that, since I saw him, at times I have felt as though there were a bird in my bosom, which would one day fly hence and sing elsewhere. Even now, though I cannot lift my hand, and my brain grows cold, I do not feel as though my heart were dying. It is so full of love that it could live 10,000 years, and yet be young. Say that if I live again, mayhap I shall see him in the stars, and that I will search them all, though perchance there I should still be black, and he would still be white. Say, nay, Macumazahn, say no more, save that I love. Oh, hold me closer, Bougwan, I cannot feel thine arms. Oh, oh, she is dead. She is dead, muttered Good, rising in grief, the tears running down his honest face. You need not let that trouble you, old fellow, said Sir Henry. Eh, exclaimed Good, what do you mean? I mean that you will soon be in a position to join her. Man, don't you see that we are buried alive? Until Sir Henry uttered these words, I do not think that the full horror of what had happened had come home to us, preoccupied as we were with the sight of poor Foulata's end. But now we understood. The ponderous mass of rock had closed, probably forever, for the only brain which knew its secret was crushed to powder beneath its weight. This was a door that none could hope to force with anything short of dynamite in large quantities. And we were on the wrong side. For a few minutes we stood horrified, there over the corpse of Fulada. All the manhood seemed to have gone out of us. The first shock of this idea of the slow and miserable end that awaited us was overpowering. We saw it all now. That fiend Gugul had planned this snare for us from the first. It would have been just the jest that her evil mind would have rejoiced in, the idea of the 3 white men, whom, for some reason of her own, she had always hated, slowly perishing of thirst and hunger in the company of the treasure they had coveted. Now I saw the point of that sneer of hers about eating and drinking the diamonds. Probably somebody had tried to serve the poor old Dom in the same way when he abandoned the skin full of jewels. "This will never do," said Sir Henry hoarsely. "The lamp will soon go out. Let us see if we can't find the spring that works the rock." We sprang forward with desperate energy and, standing in a bloody ooze, began to feel up and down the door and the sides of the passage. But no knob or spring could we discover. "Depend on it," I said, "it does not work from the inside. If it did, Gugul would not have risked trying to crawl underneath the stone. It was the knowledge of this that made her try to escape at all hazards, curse her." "At all events," said Sir Henry with a hard little laugh, "retribution was swift. Hers was almost as awful an end as ours is likely to be. We can do nothing with the door. Let us go back to the treasure room." We turned and went, and as we passed it I perceived by the unfinished wall across the passage the basket of food which poor Fulata had carried. I took it up and brought it with me to the accursed treasure chamber that was to be our grave. Then we returned and reverently bore in Fulata's corpse, laying it on the floor by the boxes of coin. Next we seated ourselves, leaning our backs against the 3 stone chests which contained the priceless treasure. "Let us divide the food," said Sir Henry, "so as to make it last as long as possible." Accordingly we did so. It would, we reckoned, make 4 infinitesimally small meals for each of us, enough, say, to support life for a couple of days. Besides the biltong, or dried game flesh, there were 2 gourds of water, each of which held not more than a quart. "Now," said Sir Henry grimly, "let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die." We each ate a small portion of the biltong and drank a sip of water. Needless to say, we had but little appetite, though we were sadly in need of food and felt better after swallowing it. Then we got up and made a systematic examination of the walls of our prison house, in the faint hope of finding some means of exit, sounding them and the floor carefully. There was none. It was not probable that there would be any to a treasure chamber. The lamp began to burn dim. The fat was nearly exhausted. "Quatermain," said Sir Henry, "what is the time? Your watch goes?" I drew it out and looked at it. It was 6 o'clock. We had entered the cave at 11. "Infidus will miss us," I suggested. "If we do not return tonight, he will search for us in the morning, Curtis." "He may search in vain. He does not know the secret of the door, nor even where it is. No living person knew it yesterday, except Gugul. Today, no one knows it. Even if he found the door, he could not break it down. All the Kukuana army could not break through 5 feet of living rock. My friends, I see nothing for it but to bow ourselves to the will of the Almighty. The search for treasure has brought many to a bad end. We shall go to swell their number." The lamp grew dimmer yet. Presently it flared up and showed the whole scene in strong relief, the great mass of white tusks, the boxes of gold, the corpse of the poor Fulada stretched before them, the goatskin full of treasure, the dim glimmer of the diamonds, and the wild, wan faces of us 3 white men seated there awaiting death by starvation. Then the flame sank and expired. Chapter 18, We Abandon Hope. I can give no adequate description of the horrors of the night which followed. Mercifully, they were to some extent mitigated by sleep, for even in such a position as ours, wearied nature will sometimes assert itself. But I, at any rate, found it impossible to sleep much, putting aside the terrifying thought of our impending doom. For the bravest man on earth might well quail from such a fate as awaited us, and I never made any pretensions to be brave. The silence itself was too great to allow of it. Reader, you may have lain awake at night and thought the quiet oppressive, but I say with confidence that you can have no idea what a vivid, tangible thing is perfect stillness. On the surface of the earth there is always some sound or motion, and though it may in itself be imperceptible, yet it deadens the sharp edge of absolute silence. But here there was none. We were buried in the bowels of a huge snow-clad peak. Thousands of feet above us the fresh air rushed over the white snow, but no sound of it reached us. We were separated by a long tunnel and 5 feet of rock even from the awful chamber of the dead. And the dead make no noise. Did we not know it who lay by poor Fulada's side? The crashing of all the artillery of earth and heaven could not have come to our ears in our living tomb. We were cut off from every echo of the world. We were as men already in the grave. Then the irony of the situation forced itself upon me. There around us lay treasures enough to pay off a moderate national debt or to build a fleet of ironclads, and yet we would have bartered them all gladly for the faintest chance of escape. Soon, doubtless, we should be rejoiced to exchange them for a bit of food or a cup of water, and, after that, even for the privilege of a speedy close to our sufferings. Truly wealth, which men spend their lives in acquiring, is a valueless thing at the last. And so the night wore on. "Good," said Sir Henry's voice at last, and it sounded awful in the intense stillness. "How many matches have you in the box?" 8, Curtis. "Strike one, and let us see the time." He did so, and in contrast to the dense darkness, the flame nearly blinded us. It was 5 o'clock by my watch. The beautiful dawn was now blushing on the snow wreaths far over our heads, and the breeze would be stirring the night mists in the hollows. "We had better eat something and keep up our strength," I suggested. "What is the good of eating?" answered Good. "The sooner we die and get it over, the better." "While there is life, there is hope," said Sir Henry. Accordingly, we ate and sipped some water, and another period of time elapsed. Then Sir Henry suggested that it might be well to get as near the door as possible and halloa on the faint chance of somebody catching a sound outside. Accordingly, Good, who, from long practice at sea, has a fine piercing note, groped his way down the passage and set to work. I must say that he made a most diabolical noise. I never heard such yells, but it might have been a mosquito buzzing for all the effect they produced. After a while he gave it up and came back very thirsty and had to drink. Then we stopped yelling as it encroached on the supply of water. So we sat down once more against the chests of useless diamonds in that dreadful inaction which was one of the hardest circumstances of our fate. And I am bound to say that, for my part, I gave way in despair. Laying my head against Sir Henry's broad shoulder, I burst into tears, and I think that I heard Good gulping away on the other side and swearing hoarsely at himself for doing so. Ah, how good and brave that great man was! Had we been 2 frightened children, and he our nurse, he could not have treated us more tenderly. Forgetting his own share of miseries, he did all he could to soothe our broken nerves, telling stories of men who had been in somewhat similar circumstances and miraculously escaped. And when these failed to cheer us, pointing out how, after all, it was only anticipating an end which must come to us all, that it would soon be over, and that death from exhaustion was a merciful one, which is not true. Then, in a diffident sort of way, as once before I had heard him do, he suggested that we should throw ourselves on the mercy of a higher power, which, for my part, I did with great vigor. His is a beautiful character, very quiet, but very strong. And so somehow the day went as the night had gone, if, indeed, one can use these terms where all was densest night, and when I lit a match to see the time it was 7 o'clock. Once more we ate and drank, and as we did so an idea occurred to me. "How is it," said I, "that the air in this place keeps fresh? It is thick and heavy, but it is perfectly fresh." "Great heavens," said Good, starting up, "I never thought of that. It can't come through the stone door, for it's air-tight, if ever a door was. It must come from somewhere. If there were no current of air in the place, we should have been stifled or poisoned when we first came in. Let us have a look." It was wonderful what a change this mere spark of hope wrought in us. In a moment we were all three groping about on our hands and knees, feeling for the slightest indication of a draught. Presently my ardor received a check. I put my hand on something cold. It was dead Falada's face. For an hour or more we went on feeling about, till at last Sir Henry and I gave it up in despair, having been considerably hurt by constantly knocking our heads against tusks, chests, and the sides of the chamber. But Good still persevered, saying, with an approach to cheerfulness, that it was better than doing nothing. "I say, you fellows," he said presently, in a constrained sort of voice, "come here." Needless to say, we scrambled towards him quickly enough. "Quatermain, put your hand here where mine is. Now, do you feel anything? I think I feel air coming up. Now listen." He rose and stamped upon the place, and a flame of hope shot up in our hearts. It rang hollow. With trembling hands I lit a match. I had only 3 left, and we saw that we were in the angle of the far corner of the chamber, a fact that accounted for our not having noticed the hollow sound of the place during our former exhaustive examination. As the match burnt, we scrutinized the spot. There was a join in the solid rock floor, and, great heavens, there, let in level with the rock, was a stone ring. We said no word. We were too excited, and our hearts beat too wildly with hope to allow us to speak. Good had a knife, at the back of which was one of those hooks that are made to extract stones from horses' hoofs. He opened it and scratched round the ring with it. Finally he worked it under and levered away gently for fear of breaking the hook. The ring began to move. Being of stone, it had not rusted fast in all the centuries it had lain there, as would have been the case had it been of iron. Presently it was upright. Then he thrust his hands into it and tugged with all his force, but nothing budged. "Let me try," I said impatiently, for the situation of the stone, right in the angle of the corner, was such that it was impossible for 2 to pull at once. I took hold and strained away, but no results. Then Sir Henry tried and failed. Taking the hook again, Good scratched all round the crack where we felt the air coming up. "Now, Curtis," he said, "tackle on and put your back into it. You are as strong as 2. Stop!" And he took off a stout black silk handkerchief, which, true to his habits of neatness, he still wore, and ran it through the ring. "Quatermain, get Curtis round the middle and pull for dear life when I give the word. Now." Sir Henry put out all his enormous strength, and Good and I did the same, with such power as nature had given us. "Heave, heave, it's giving," gasped Sir Henry, and I heard the muscles of his great back cracking. Suddenly there was a grating sound, then a rush of air, and we were all on our backs on the floor with a heavy flag stone upon the top of us. Sir Henry's strength had done it, and never did muscular power stand a man in better stead. "Light a match, Quatermain," he said, so soon as we had picked ourselves up and got our breath. "Carefully, now." I did so, and there before us, heaven be praised, was the first step of a stone stair. "Now, what is to be done?" asked Good. "Follow the stair, of course, and trust to Providence." "Stop," said Sir Henry. "Quatermain, get the bit of biltong and the water that are left. We may want them." I went, creeping back to our place by the chests for that purpose, and as I was coming away, an idea struck me. We had not thought much of the diamonds for the last 24 hours or so. Indeed, the very idea of diamonds was nauseous, seeing what they had entailed upon us. But, reflected I may as well pocket some in case we ever should get out of this ghastly hole. So I just put my fist into the first chest and filled all the available pockets of my old shooting coat and trousers, topping up. This was a happy thought, with a few handfuls of big ones from the third chest. Also, by an afterthought, I stuffed Fulada's basket, which, except for one water gourd and a little biltong, was empty now, with great quantities of the stones. "I say, you fellows," I sang out, "won't you take some diamonds with you? I've filled my pockets and the basket." "Oh, come on, Quatermain, and hang the diamonds," said Sir Henry. "I hope that I may never see another." As for Good, he made no answer. He was, I think, taking his last farewell of all that was left of the poor girl who had loved him so well. And curious as it may seem to you, my reader, sitting at home at ease and reflecting on the vast, indeed the immeasurable, wealth which we were thus abandoning, I can assure you that if you had passed some 28 hours with next to nothing to eat and drink in that place, you would not have cared to cumber yourself with diamonds whilst plunging down into the unknown bowels of the earth, in the wild hope of escape from an agonizing death. If from the habits of a lifetime it had not become a sort of second nature with me never to leave anything worth having behind if there was the slightest chance of my being able to carry it away, I am sure that I should not have bothered to fill my pockets and that basket. "Come on, Quatermain," repeated Sir Henry, who was already standing on the first step of the stone stair. "Steady, I will go first. Mind where you put your feet, there may be some awful hole underneath," I answered. "Much more likely to be another room," said Sir Henry, while he descended slowly, counting the steps as he went. When he got to 15, he stopped. "Here's the bottom," he said. "Thank goodness, I think it's a passage. Follow me down." Good went next, and I came last, carrying the basket, and on reaching the bottom lit one of the 2 remaining matches. By its light we could just see that we were standing in a narrow tunnel which ran right and left at right angles to the staircase we had descended. Before we could make out any more, the match burnt my fingers and went out. Then arose the delicate question of which way to go. Of course, it was impossible to know what the tunnel was or where it led to, and yet to turn one way might lead us to safety and the other to destruction. We were utterly perplexed, till suddenly it struck Good that when I had lit the match, the draught of the passage blew the flame to the left. "Let us go against the draught," he said. "Air draws inwards, not outwards." We took this suggestion, and feeling along the wall with our hands whilst trying the ground before us at every step, we departed from that accursed treasure chamber on our terrible quest for life. If ever it should be entered again by living man, which I do not think probable, he will find tokens of our visit in the open chests of jewels, the empty lamp, and the white bones of poor Fulata. When we had groped our way for about a quarter of an hour along the passage, suddenly it took a sharp turn, or else was bisected by another, which we followed, only in course of time to be led into a third. And so it went on for some hours. We seemed to be in a stone labyrinth that led nowhere. What all these passages are, of course I cannot say, but we thought that they must be the ancient workings of a mine, of which the various shafts and adits traveled hither and thither as the ore led them. This is the only way in which we could account for such a multitude of galleries. At length we halted, thoroughly worn out with fatigue and with that hope deferred, which maketh the heart sick, and ate up our poor remaining piece of biltong, and drank our last sup of water, for our throats were like lime kilns. It seemed to us that we had escaped death in the darkness of the treasure chamber, only to meet him in the darkness of the tunnels. As we stood, once more utterly depressed, I thought that I caught a sound, to which I called the attention of the others. It was very faint and very far off, but it was a sound, a faint murmuring sound, for the others heard it too, and no words can describe the blessedness of it after all those hours of utter, awful stillness. "By heaven, it's running water," said Good. "Come on." Off we started again, in the direction from which the faint murmur seemed to come, groping our way as before along the rocky walls. I remember that I laid down the basket full of diamonds, wishing to be rid of its weight, but on second thoughts took it up again. One might as well die rich as poor, I reflected. As we went, the sound became more and more audible, till at last it seemed quite loud in the quiet. On, yet on. Now we could distinctly make out the unmistakable swirl of rushing water. And yet, how could there be running water in the bowels of the earth? Now we were quite near it, and Good, who was leading, swore that he could smell it. "Go gently, Good," said Sir Henry. "We must be close." Splash, and a cry from Good. He had fallen in. "Good, Good, where are you?" we shouted in terrified distress. To our intense relief, an answer came back in a choky voice. "All right, I've got hold of a rock. Strike a light to show me where you are." Hastily I lit the last remaining match. Its faint gleam discovered to us a dark mass of water running at our feet. How wide it was we could not see, but there, some way out, was the dark form of our companion hanging on to a projecting rock. "Stand clear to catch me," sung out. "Good, I must swim for it." Then we heard a splash and a great struggle. Another minute and he had grabbed at and caught Sir Henry's outstretched hand, and we had pulled him up high and dry into the tunnel. "My word," he said between his gasps, "that was touch and go. If I hadn't managed to catch that rock and known how to swim, I should have been done. It runs like a mill race, and I could feel no bottom." We dared not follow the banks of the subterranean river for fear lest we should fall into it again in the darkness. So after Good had rested a while, and we had drunk our fill of the water, which was sweet and fresh, and washed our faces, that needed it sadly, as well as we could, we started from the banks of this African Styx, and began to retrace our steps along the tunnel, Good dripping unpleasantly in front of us. At length we came to another gallery leading to our right. "We may as well take it," said Sir Henry wearily. "All roads are alike here. We can only go on till we drop." Slowly, for a long, long while, we stumbled, utterly exhausted, along this new tunnel, Sir Henry now leading the way. Again I thought of abandoning that basket, but did not. Suddenly he stopped, and we bumped up against him. "Look," he whispered, "is my brain going, or is that light?" We stared with all our eyes, and there, yes there, far ahead of us, was a faint, glimmering spot no larger than a cottage window pane. It was so faint that I doubt if any eyes, except those which, like ours, had for days seen nothing but blackness, could have perceived it at all. With a gasp of hope we pushed on. In 5 minutes there was no longer any doubt. It was a patch of faint light. A minute more, and a breath of real live air was fanning us. On we struggled. All at once the tunnel narrowed. Sir Henry went on his knees. Smaller yet it grew, till it was only the size of a large fox's earth. It was earth now, mind you. The rock had ceased. A squeeze, a struggle, and Sir Henry was out, and so was Good, and so was I, dragging Foulada's basket after me. And there above us were the blessed stars, and in our nostrils was the sweet air. Then suddenly something gave, and we were all rolling over and over and over through grass and bushes and soft, wet soil. The basket caught in something, and I stopped. Sitting up, I hallooed lustily. An answering shout came from below, where Sir Henry's wild career had been checked by some level ground. I scrambled to him and found him unhurt, though breathless. Then we looked for Good. A little way off we discovered him also, hammed in a forked root. He was a good deal knocked about, but soon came to himself. We sat down together, there on the grass, and the revulsion of feeling was so great that really I think we cried with joy. We had escaped from that awful dungeon which was so near to becoming our grave. Surely some merciful power guided our footsteps to the jackal hole, for that is what it must have been, at the termination of the tunnel. And see, yonder on the mountains, the dawn we had never thought to look upon again was blushing rosy red. Presently the gray lights stole down the slopes, and we saw that we were at the bottom, or rather nearly at the bottom, of the vast pit in front of the entrance to the cave. Now we could make out the dim forms of the 3 colossi who sat upon its verge. Doubtless those awful passages along which we had wandered the livelong night had been originally in some way connected with the great diamond mine. As for the subterranean river in the bowels of the mountain, heaven only knows what it is, or whence it flows, or whither it goes. I, for one, have no anxiety to trace its course. Lighter it grew, and lighter yet. We could see each other now, and such a spectacle as we presented I have never set eyes on before or since. Gaunt-cheeked, hollow-eyed wretches, smeared all over with dust and mud, bruised, bleeding, the long fear of imminent death yet written on our countenances, we were indeed a sight to frighten the daylight. And yet it is a solemn fact that Good's eyeglass was still fixed in Good's eye. I doubt whether he had ever taken it out at all. Neither the darkness, nor the plunge in the subterranean river, nor the roll down the slope had been able to separate Good and his eyeglass. Presently we rose, fearing that our limbs would stiffen if we stopped there longer, and commenced with slow and painful steps to struggle up the sloping sides of the great pit. For an hour or more we toiled steadfastly up the blue clay, dragging ourselves on by the help of the roots and grasses with which it was clothed. But now I had no more thought of leaving the basket. Indeed, nothing but death should have parted us. At last it was done, and we stood by the great road on that side of the pit which is opposite to the colossi. At the side of the road, 100 yards off, a fire was burning in front of some huts, and round the fire were figures. We staggered towards them, supporting one another, and halting every few paces. Presently one of the figures rose, saw us, and fell onto the ground, crying out for fear. "Infidus, infidus, it is we, thy friends." He rose, he ran to us, staring wildly, and still shaking with fear. "Oh, my lords, it is indeed you come back from the dead, come back from the dead." And the old warrior flung himself down before us, and clasping Sir Henry's knees, he wept aloud for joy.